Thank you very much for joining us today. 1 o'clock, we're going to talk about the user experience. My name is Jeff Fairbanks from Bloomberg. So we're going to jump right in. I just want to give a special shout out to our special guest, Jason Statham. So thank you very much, Jason, for coming. So we're going to talk about the user experience, and I'm going to probably just move this out of the way because I don't really need it. And you guys should be able to see the screen pretty well. So we're going to jump right in. So thank you very much for coming. All right. So I think it's always good to level set the conversation, so to understand where we're coming from and what my vantage point is, right? Because if you understand my background, you understand the environment that I'm coming from, you can kind of understand the journey that I want to try to bring you on as far as the user experience is concerned. So first and foremost, I want to bring you through Bloomberg. So this is Bloomberg. I can't show you the latest, the 2017 version because there is some proprietary information that's in there. So I'm going to show you the 2017 or 2016 rather version of what the AV team does within Bloomberg, our spaces, and kind of the technology that we bring to that space. So here we go.
In 2016, the Bloomberg Global AV team set a new standard for corporate AV support and simultaneously transformed how Bloomberg employees communicate with the world. The Bloomberg Global AV team is responsible for 5 core AV areas: event technology, unified communications, AV design build, digital signage, and collaboration technology architecture. This multinational, multi-gender, multi-ethnic group of 14 full-time professionals is strategically located throughout the world. In 2016, the Bloomberg AV team supported 4,791 VIP AV events across 193 offices in 73 countries and hosted world-renowned speakers. 2016 also saw the launch of Nexi 2.0, a homegrown video conferencing and collaboration tool produced by a joint venture between the Bloomberg AV team and Video. This solution was deployed to 19,000 users and supported 4.1 million video conference calls, equaling more than 387.2 million minutes of talk time. Last year, the Bloomberg Global AV team designed, built, and/or refurbished 26 offices internationally and expanded responsibilities to Greater Europe and Africa regions, including upgrades to Brussels, Rome, Frankfurt, and Cape Town. Additionally, the team began the AV installation process for Bloomberg Place, the new Bloomberg European headquarters, and the most expensive AV project in the UK. Not resting for a moment, 2016 also saw the conclusion of a 3-year project to deploy a single global digital signage solution, utilizing CableTime's IPTV infrastructure. This deployment, coupled with the infrastructure for the new London headquarters, will be the largest corporate installation of CableTime's IPTV infrastructure in the world. Unsatisfied with the digital whiteboard available in the market, the Bloomberg AV team decided to build their own. Partnering with Video and Display Note, Bloomberg's AV team built the framework and proof of concepts for a new digital whiteboard to be included in the Nexi 2.0 platform. The Bloomberg AV team works every day to challenge the status quo and deliver the best AV solutions possible. In 2016, we exceeded our wildest imaginations.
So that's the landscape. That's the vantage point that I'm coming from. All right, I just want to kind of level set you so you can understand what we try to do. And one of the core tenets, one of the core principles that we try to do at Bloomberg and that we try to aspire within our team is the idea that the user experience comes first, comes last, and it comes always. And that the technology that we buy, we don't back into that experience, but rather we are the curators of that experience. It is up to us to identify, to define, to understand what it is that we're trying to bring our users into, what experience we're trying to have them have, and then identify the technologies and tools. And if they don't exist, that doesn't mean that we can't do it. It means that we go help manufacturers develop those technologies. And so there's much more of a conversation around building solutions rather than buying products, right? It's about moving away from commoditization of product or experience and moving towards developing and partnerships for solutions. And so as we move through this, what I want to walk you through are kind of the 6 areas. So we're going to do an awareness test. We're going to talk about the commoditization of the user unified communications landscape. the user experience itself, data, we're going to talk about the roadmap, and we're going to talk about a case study. So we're going to bring you through these 6 elements here and try to explain to you holistically and through the course of this conversation what it is that we mean by user experience. Let's talk about the user experience. And let's talk about the products and the commoditization that's out there for the like let's take unified communications as an example, right? So we say, I want unified communications. So I'm going to get my shopping cart, I'm going to go to the unified communications store, I'm going to pick off the shelf some unified communications, I'm going to run it through the barcode, I'm going to buy it, I'm going to take it. And we think that's unified communications. That's not unified communications, newsflash. I know that Cisco and Pexip and other guys are going to tell you that's not it, just buy our product and you have unified communications, but I'm here to tell you that they're wrong, in my humble opinion. Right now, I'm not $90 billion of market capitalization, so maybe they might have something right in their line too, but what I will say is that if you treat it as a commodity, you are going to miss something really, really big. So what it is that we do is, this is what we do. We say, I need unified communications, so I need a video conferencing platform, so we make a big spreadsheet. And then we pick out all the things that are important to us, and then we go through all the manufacturers that are out there, and we start checking the boxes. And this is natural inclination to do, right? This is the natural thing that you want to do. We need unified communications, it's a product, I'm going to go out and buy it. But if you do that, what I'm arguing with you is you are going to miss a gigantic moonwalking bear right in front of you. Because in your mind's eye, and what your mission is, right, is to identify the unified communication solution and go buy it. And so you're counting the passes. You're lining up the manufacturers and you're counting the passes. And what you are missing is the user experience that you're actually trying to create. And guess what? They don't know the user experience you're trying to create. You know the user experience you're trying to create. Your business, your industry, your employees, your people are unique and different than other places. There are lots of commonalities, right? There are lots of commonalities. But there are uniquenesses. There are cultural uniquenesses that are distinct to the company itself. And if you don't take those into account, if you don't factor those into your decision-making problem set, then you are going to miss the moonwalking bear. Okay? So let's bring us through. UC, so in this case, unified communications, is equal to the user experience plus AV to the power of IT. All right, so what am I saying? I'm saying that in our case, in this example, unified communications, right? Unified communications isn't a product, it's an experience. So, for example, if I go to the symphony and I listen to each one of those instruments play independently, that is not a unified experience. But the moment that I'm sitting there and each instrument is playing in concert, together, as one, conducted in that moment, in that instance, that is unified communications. It is not a solution, but it is an experience. It is what happens when the confluence of AV and IT work together to create a user experience that is seamless, that is interchangeable with the technology. The technology isn't the thing we're aspiring to do. The technology shouldn't be the thing that's in the way of the outcome, but rather the technology should be the enabler to the experience. Okay? Unified communications, in this example, is equal to the user experience plus AV to the power of IT, right? The power of the network, the infrastructure that you have, right? Okay, so what does this look like? It looks like this. This is the user experience lifestyle in my interpretation. So one of the first things that most people do is they go out and they do the last thing. They build the design, right? They look at the manufacturers and they build this design. I would argue, in my humble opinion, that you take a step back and you actually go to the research side. And the research isn't about finding the manufacturer. No. That is the common mistake. When we look at brands and business and vision and customers and success metrics, those aren't brands of manufacturer or businesses that manufacture unified communications. No. That is your brand. What is your brand? What is your experience that you're trying to create? What is your business? And how does it compare to the other businesses that are in your industry? So one of the things that's interesting is, if I'm a manufacturer, if I'm making a widget, right? You can take my widget and you can extrapolate from that widget and you can manufacture a widget. And you're my competition, and you can manufacture a widget. What you can't usually do, right, is you can't recreate my culture. You can try. Google has great, great pantry. They have lots of cool toys and goodies, and they have slides in the office. I can recreate all that, right? I can recreate that. But there is a uniqueness to the culture of Google that comes from the founders, that comes from the people that work there, that comes from the intrinsic nature of the collaboration that happens there that is unique to Google, that is unique to your business. Can't recreate that. And so going to a manufacturer and saying, I want to buy a unified communications product off the shelf and apply it to my unique environment, that's a recipe for underutilization at best, or under-adoption at best. You want to get high adoption? Then think about the user experience. So what I would argue is your brand, your business, your vision, that is your vision, not their vision, your vision. Not their vision, that's your vision. How many times have you bought a product and they say, you know what, in version 3, it's going to do that cool thing. It's going to peel bananas in version 3. In version 2, it doesn't peel bananas. In version 3, it's going to peel bananas. So just buy it now, and in version 3, you're going to get the bananas peeler. So you buy it. Right? You invest it. You deploy it to your whole company. And then a year later, when the banana peeler comes out, like, you know what? We had a test group and people, they wanted strawberries. So it peels strawberries. It doesn't peel bananas. But in version 6, it's going to peel bananas. So just buy the upgrade, pay the maintenance. I promise you it's going to peel those bananas in version 6. Right? Version 6 comes along. Guess what? Avocados. We got them. We got them. I know you don't like avocados, but we got avocados. Those bananas, nobody really wants the bananas, so we're not going to do the bananas. Right? If you marry yourself to their roadmap and their vision, you're never going to achieve your vision because they don't care about your vision. They care about your money. They don't care about your vision. Right? Only you care about your vision. And you need to be the architects of your vision. Right? So that's a vision. The customers, your customers. Right? So I'm in the IT space. I run IT operations for Bloomberg. And so my customers are the 19,000 employees, over 192 offices in 73 countries. I have a very diverse group of customers that I need to satisfy. And I have a lot of them, and all of them have different opinions, all right? But nonetheless, I need to understand those customers. I need to understand the unifying nature of those customers. Oftentimes, the culture is the thing that kind of stitches that together. I need to understand that, and then I need to figure out what the success metrics are. What oftentimes happens is you wait till all the way over here when you ship the product, or in this case, you deploy the product to figure out, all right, now how are we going to measure the success of this product? That's the wrong time, right? You do it here. And the reason you do it there is so that you can actually identify the right tool here and here. If you don't have success metrics, things that you care about that are important to you, that you can measure, that are both quantifiable and quantifiable, right? Then you're never going to be able to know whether you were successful in the execution. But you got to do it early. Now, insight, right? This is where the task models, user stories, and personas come into play. What we mean by this is you got to build a story. What is the story? So we have 500,000 guests come into our space. 500,000 people come into our offices during the course of a year. So I want the experience to start when they get off the subway, when they arrive in their car, and they're walking towards our office. That's when the experience starts. The experience doesn't start when they enter our building, or when they badge in, or when they come up to our 6th floor pantry and they have their first cup of coffee. No, no, no. The experience starts the moment you say, I'm coming to Bloomberg, and I send you an email, the experience starts. What I put in that email, the details of the information, how I have that relationship and communicate with you about what is expected of you when you come into my space. Then when you arrive in our space, what happens to you? Who greets you? How are they greeted? Do you have wireless credentials? Do you have a badging process? Do you go to our 6th floor? Do you have a cup of coffee offered to you? Do you have snacks and drinks? Do I arrive in a reasonable amount of time to greet you once you have arrived in our place? Do you know how to navigate through? All of these questions feed into this user experience, and you might think to yourself, I'm building a unified communication system. I'm worried about video conferencing and phones. Why would I care about people walking into my business and what that experience is? And that's where I'd argue that you're not thinking big enough. You're not thinking big enough. If your thought process is, I have to make sure I have a click, that I have a catch box microphone in my auditorium, and that's going to solve my problems with audience participation, then you're dead wrong. Right? Your problem with audience participation started the moment your audience arrived in that auditorium. The moment they were told that they were going to have the option to participate in an event in your space. That's when the audience participation should start, not when they arrive and sit down. Right? So That's the stories. What's the story you want? And what are the personas? What are the buckets that you can put these people into so that you can understand that experience, right? So then we move over to the concept, right? So this is when you build the prototypes, you refine the ideas, you explore options, you sketch out, you validate. This is when you start actually talking to the manufacturers. And I would argue, and this is going to be controversial, right? I would argue that you don't talk to the resellers and you don't talk to the distributors, but you talk to the manufacturers. I know, it's bad. But doesn't mean that you can't have that relationship and that partnership with the resellers and the distributors and consultants. They're all wonderful and great, and they're absolutely add value to the overall ecosystem of what you're trying to achieve. But what I would argue is, talk to the manufacturer, get the tour behind the red door, see what the R&D is doing in the back end. If you have those types of relationships, you're going to know what your prototypes will really do in the real world, and you're going to know what technologies are coming down the pike to be able to facilitate maybe something that doesn't exist on the conference room floor at the present moment. Design. Now we move into the design. Now we actually start coding, we start monitoring, we do detailed design, and we then ship that product, right? Or we, in this case, we deploy that product into our environment. So this is the user experience lifecycle, as we see it, as I see it. And what I want you to take away from this, if nothing else, is that if you start here, your adoption will not be what you want it to be. If you start here, you will never be able to measure how successful you are and whether the return on the investment was worth it. If you start here, you're going to be married to the roadmap of the manufacturer, and you're never going to be able to pivot when you want to pivot. You're never going to be as agile as you would otherwise be able to be, and you're never going to be able to satisfy the user experience that you want to create. The idea is that it's a good idea to have a conference call. It's a good idea to facilitate collaboration. It's a good idea to have that secured by having a passcode or a way to access that's restricted to other people. It's a good idea to send a recap of the meeting out after the meeting is done. It's a good idea to announce who people are as they enter the room. But each one of those aspects, while it's a good idea, stitched together in that experience is a bad user experience, right? And we accept it. We accept it because it's the way that it is, and we accept it. And what happens is manufacturers say, this is the way it is. There has to be a tone when you enter the room. There has to be an audible indication that the person's there. There has to be the ability to mute and unmute. All these things are standard. They have to be. They don't have to be that way. They're manufacturing it that way because that's the way it exists, but it doesn't mean it has to be that way. And that's where you come in. That's where your vision comes in. That's where your decisions around the user experience come in. That's where you inform that process, right? So what I will say to you is data, data, data. So we go back to the original concept of looking at the landscape and doing the research, right? The research is informed by data. And you have these things called leading indicators and lagging indicators. And the best way I can describe this is a leading indicator is let's say I want to lose weight, right? I know I need to lose some weight. You don't have to remind me, but I lose some weight, all right? So I have a leading indicator, right? If I go and I eat food has calories, and I can calculate those calories, and I can decide, listen, I'm supposed to consume 2,000 calories. If I exceed 2,000 calories, I'm going to gain weight, right? I'm going to gain weight. If I reduce the calorie intake, then I'm going to lose weight. So that is a leading indicator, something that's happening beforehand. A lagging indicator is I step on the scale and it tells me I'm overweight. Right? I'm overweight, there's not a lot I can do about it once I step on the scale and it tells me I'm overweight, right? Only thing I can do is refer back to a leading indicator. Refer back to something that will inform that experience so that I can change my behaviors and have a better outcome. So you have these leading and lagging indicators. What are the leading and lagging indicators in your environment? Right? It's hard. This is a hard concept to get. So in the example of the unified communications experience, when you're walking into Bloomberg, for example, right? And you're sitting down, one of the things we do is we give you a badge, right? We give you a badge and it denotes who you are, right, in our space. Security uses it to authenticate who you are. Guests use it, our employees use it to identify the guests. But on that badge, there's some important information. Automatically, there is a unique username and password for our Wi-Fi. So you don't have to guess. There are no little signs, there's no tablets. You don't have to ask anybody what the Wi-Fi or username or password is. It's unique, and it's unique to you. And so there isn't this, we got to change it every month, or we got to change it every week because we don't want the password getting out to the people around. And we can use that unique credential to also offer you better experiences within our space. Right? We can use that to tailor where you can go and what you can do and what you can access, what you can't access based on the people that you're meeting, right? So, and then we can also couple that with wayfinding. And so now we can navigate you through our spaces easily with apps that you can download that we can tell you about in advance of coming into our space. We can tag that to notification that as I'm an employee and I'm sitting at my desk and I'm expecting you as a guest, when you arrive, I'm notified that you've arrived. I'm notified to where you're going. I'm notified to when you arrive on the floor, on the greeting floor. Our 6th floor is our greeting floor, and that's where our pantry is. I'm notified when you arrive that you have arrived and where you're sitting. And so as an employee, I don't have to waste my time looking around the pantry trying to identify who you are or waiting to understand when you arrive. Rather, your credentials are already entered, your badge is already printed. When you arrive, all those things are already done for you. Your picture is already in our system if you've come before. And if it's not, we'll take your picture and add that to our Rolodex so that next time you come, we can identify you easily and print your badge ahead of time. Right? We can give you that high-end hotel experience. One of the things I used to do is I used to work at the Ritz-Carlton. I used to do AV at the Ritz-Carlton. And one of the great things we had was this system called Legacy. And if you arrived at a Ritz-Carlton in Boston, Massachusetts, United States, and you had a cold, and you walked up to the counter and you sneezed or coughed or some way indicated that you were sick, by the time you got to your room, there was a cup of tea with sugar and sweetener in there, no charge to you, some cookies by the bedside, and we would identify your favorite reading material from your other stays, and we'd have your favorite reading material in your room ready to go. You didn't say anything. We understood the expressed and unexpressed needs of our guests, and then we satisfied those. That's what we aspire to do at Bloomberg. That's what we do at Bloomberg. That's what I would challenge you to do in your user experiences in your environments. What are the expressed needs? Expressed needs is, dude, I got a guest, and they need Wi-Fi. Right? We know they need Wi-Fi to navigate through the building. So that's an expressed need. The unexpressed needs are, they probably need a drink, a nice drink. They probably need to figure out where the restrooms are. They probably need to figure out where you are. You probably need to greet them and have a room to sit in and have a conversation. All those unexpressed needs we need to satisfy in the chain of giving you a badge. And that's what we can do in our environment. Right? So we have leading indicators, lagging indicators, data. Capture as much data. You wouldn't be surprised how many people don't have any hard data around their experiences. And you think you have to go out and buy these products or these intricate systems. You don't. You know the employee population, you know the MAC addresses of all your employee phones, especially if you issue them, right? So any MAC address that isn't part of the Rolodex of MAC addresses, that's probably a guest MAC address. Or it's a security vulnerability, you need to look at that. But it's probably a MAC address of a guest user, right? And you can gain data from that. You can figure out how many unique MAC addresses enter your space. That tells you how many guests you have. You don't have to put in facial recognition cameras and have people standing with counters or put in laser grids to count the number of steps. People do all these crazy things to figure out how many people are in their environment. Use the stuff you already have, right? But it takes a moment for you to step back and say, what is our environment? What technology do we have in the environment? And how can we leverage that differently than we currently do to build a better user experience, right? All right. One great extrapolation from that I just kind of thought of was, okay, you have your MAC addresses of all your devices, and you can identify how many unique MAC addresses to the space there are. Well, if there's a certain number or a threshold, you can build replenishments, right? You can say, you know what? I'm going to replenish the coffee after I get 60 unique MAC addresses in my pantry. I'm going to make sure that a notification is sent to the pantry staff to refresh the coffee. You can build those metrics and analytics into stuff that you already have. You don't have to go out and buy or pay consultants to do that. You just have to think about it in a different way, turn it on its side. So leading indicators, lagging indicators, unified communications. Data, right, is not equal the leading and lagging indicators, it's not equal to health checks. So often what we do is we say, okay, I'm going to send somebody physically to our spaces, and we're going to check the cameras, and we're going to check the microphones, and we're going to do these health checks, and that's how we're going to capture our data. That is a lagging indicator. Like having someone go to a room and identify that the camera is broken, that's a lagging indicator. Writing a script that's deployed to your machines that says, hey, if the USB peripheral that's plugged in that we know identify as camera, that we've tagged as a camera, is not there, deploy someone to go fix it. And before we deploy for them, someone to go fix it, recycle the USB input. Because maybe the USB input just stuttered for a second, right? That's using these leading indicators to inform your experience and make it better. Okay, so moving forward. This is what gets a lot of people in trouble, the roadmap, okay? If you decide to take the alternative route to what I said was the UX experience, and you decide to start here, you are going to be married to their roadmap, to the manufacturer's roadmap. And I already gave you a crystal clear example of what that means. That means that whatever they're coming out with, you're going to have to take or you're not going to take, but the stuff you want, you ain't going to get. And most of the time, these manufacturers, while they still give great lip service to, we want to be there, we want to be your partner, we want to help you develop new products, most of the time, if they're big manufacturers, they're not in a space to be able to customize the way they want to customize. There are exceptions, great exceptions. Without giving a shameless plug, Meyer is a wonderful example of that. Meyer Sound Solutions out of California are quite honestly excellent at that. But notwithstanding, many manufacturers can't do that. So you need to be upfront about what is the engagement and the partnership is upfront. You need to tell them what you want, what they have, what they don't have, what you need. And you need to figure out whether or not they're willing to partner with you to develop those needs. But you need to do it early. You need to do it early, at the first conversation. Because what it will turn into is, here's our catalog, here's our book of business, here's what we sell, buy what we sell, don't come back to us until you buy what we sell. And that ain't the way to go. Revo Labs / Yamaha is another great example of that partnership that we have, where in fact we help develop products specific to our spaces. So, don't be married to the roadmap. Let's zoom out, let's look at a case study, let's look at what we did at Bloomberg. Just trying to wrap this up and give you an example, and we'll do some questions. So, awareness, right? We had an exercise in 2014 where we needed to be aware of what was happening in our environment. We had video conferencing infrastructure that wasn't meeting our demands, and our demand exceeded capacity. So, if that orange line is our capacity, that green line is our demand. As you can clearly see, our demand was exceeding capacity. If we were a business and we were selling widgets and this was our problem, this is a great problem to have, right? But if you're a business and you're trying to satisfy video conferencing calls and collaboration with our environment, this is a crap problem to have, especially when you have to go tell your executive committee that, yeah, we know that we want our teams to collaborate. Yeah, we have 192 offices. Yeah, they're in 73 countries. Yeah, those employees want to collaborate together and bring more value to our overall business, but we can't because our infrastructure doesn't support it. Sorry. All right, that's not a great place to be, and that was the place I had to be in 2014. But all that data informed our experience and our vision. Right? So that data said, hey, let's apply the design model, let's do our research, boom, we have the data. Let's do some modeling, let's look at personas, let's look at our environment, let's look at the various groups of people that work in our environment. We kind of boiled it down to 3 key groups. We have our sales group, we have our engineering group, we have everybody else. Right? Our sales group is kind of unique, our engineering group is kind of unique, very, very unique. And then everyone else that kind of falls into that bucket, right? So we built our personas, then we did some prototyping, we defined, we looked at the landscape that was out there, we did some research as far as manufacturers that could provide it, and we realized there wasn't anything in the market that got rid of the first problem, which was that user experience problem where they had the passwords and the keys and the beeps and the bad audio and bad video and bad experience, overall experience. There wasn't anything out there that solved that problem that we saw at the time in 2014, so we built it ourselves. And we partnered with a manufacturer that was willing to shift their vision, their strategy, their roadmap to meet our needs and our demands, to partner with us to develop something that was unique to the market. We weren't trying to sell it to the rest of the world. We were just trying to solve our problem in our space, right? And then we looked at our audio devices, and we said, okay, we've got these 2 audio systems. We've got a lot of tickets. 23% of our install requests are all based around these 2 devices. What can we do to keep this simple, keep it cheap, right, and affordable, but also to eliminate a lot of these user problems and a lot of these hardware problems. And then the last thing we have to look at is scale, okay? It's very easy to go and buy a holistic system, like, what's the one I'm thinking of? Like a telepresence system, okay, for example. I'm not ragging on Cisco or anything like that, but it's very easy to go buy a telepresence system, holistic system, build the whole room, define it exactly to that experience. That's a lot of money. And what our core concept, our vision was, if you want to drive up utilization, you got to give it to everybody. If you want to drive up utilization, you got to make it easy. So it's got to be easy, it's got to be given to everybody, it's got to be inexpensive, because it's hard to give 19,000 people telepresence, their own personal telepresence systems, right? It's very hard to do that. It's very expensive to do that. I suppose it's possible, but if you had the GDP of France, then maybe you could do it. But we didn't have that budget to run with. So we had to make it affordable. And the last thing we did was we said there's this walkie-talkie model. And the walkie-talkie model is very simple. It's something I aspire to and believe in. It's if you have an awesome walkie-talkie and I have a crap walkie-talkie, then it doesn't matter that you have an awesome walkie-talkie. It doesn't matter that you have the greatest piece of technology, right? Because you're going to send your beautiful, wonderful, pristine audio from your wonderful, brand new walkie-talkie to my crap walkie-talkie, and it's going to come out sounding like crap. And I'm going to send my audio, this is going to be encoded like crap, to your beautiful, wonderful, wonderful, brand new walkie-talkie, and guess what? It's going to sound like garbage. So unless we both have the new technology, it doesn't matter. And so the other aspect of this was we had to design a system that we could deploy to 1,128 conference rooms around the world overnight, and deliver to 28,000 computers throughout the world. 19,000 employees, but we have 28,000 computers. So we had to figure out a system that we could say, we're going to fix this audio problem, we're going to fix this user experience problem. Oh yeah, by the way, when you leave on Friday night, you're going to have one system, but when you come in Monday morning, you're going to have an entirely different system, and we're going to do it to 1,128 conference rooms around the world on the same weekend, as well as 28,000 computers on the same weekend. And you're going to walk in and log in and be able to use the system. Because the only way it works is if you have the new walkie-talkie and I have the new walkie-talkie. That's the only way it works, right? So, kind of a daunting task, kind of a big challenge. So that was our roadmap. So what we decided was, you know what, we're going to bet, and this was, remember, 2014, that WebRTC is going to be the way of the world. We're going to bet that we're going to be able to have a WebRTC client in the next 3 years. We're going to be able to do video conferencing. It's going to be device agnostic. It's going to go operate in the browser, and we're going to be able to do that. That was our goal. So our vision was exceed demand using one app with one simple connection workflow based on WebRTC, OS agnostic, UC client. Meet or exceed our demand with one client in the conference room, at the desktop, on your mobile device, at home, one user experience with one workflow based on an OS agnostic client. I know that's a very controversial statement, so I understand if he was upset. No, just joking. All right, so there we are. That was our vision. That was our strategy. And what we did was we achieved it. We built it. And the proof is in the pudding. So in 2017, so the numbers you saw in the video were 2016. 2017, we did 7.1 million calls. We have an employee base of 19,000 employees. We did 7.1 million calls. We did 492 million minutes of video conferencing. 500 million minutes in video conferencing that we did for 19,000 employees spread across the world. Now, if you look at Viopta and some other studies, same period of time, looking at companies with 10,000 to 20,000 employees, the median for minutes is 50 million minutes a year. That's it, 50 million minutes a year. That's the median. That's the median, right? And we did 500 million minutes. We did 55 million minutes last month, the month of January. So 2 questions. 1, anybody who has a video conferencing platform, can you tell me those numbers? And if you can't, then you're wrong, because you're not collecting data. Goes back to the first point. You should be able to tell me how many calls you have. You should be able to tell me what region you have them in. You should be telling me what devices they're coming from, what operating systems are coming from. You should be able to tell me that information in great detail, because that informs your user experience. Point number 1. Point number 2 is to get this kind of adoption, this kind of utilization, where this is actually a critical system now. We have 2 critical systems at Bloomberg. We have phones, and we have this, video conferencing. Those 2 critical systems cannot be down 24/7, 365. They must be up. They must be up. That's the mandate from our founder. So we have 19,000 users. We met our demand and actually exceeded our demand. We have Complete and total adoption. Every single employee has video conferencing, has this unified communications client on their computer. They have it at home, they have it on their mobile device, and they have it in the conference rooms. Oh yeah, and by the way, it's this interface for all of them. Whether you're a guest joining our experience as an outside third-party person who's never come to Bloomberg before and has absolutely no credentials, you click one link, no username, no password, no nothing. You click one link, you're brought to this screen, and you're able to participate in the call. One link. We're able to track who you are. We're able to track securely. It's 256-bit encryption. We are able to identify what device it's coming from and whether or not that's a legitimate device. We know who you are and where you should be. And if you're coming from a place that you're not supposed to be, we know that you're coming from a place that you're not supposed to be. If we're coming from a place that you can't be, or if you click the link that's for you, and you click the link for you, and you click her link, that you're already in the call, we know she's in Amsterdam and you're in San Francisco, and it can't happen. All right? That's all the technology and logic that's built behind it. But for you, the user, you click a link. And it's the same interface. When you go into a conference room, it's the same interface. And so it drives up adoption because you don't have to learn anything. You don't have to learn about a touch panel here, and then a UC client on your desktop, and then a mobile device that's totally different. You don't have to learn any of that. You learn one workflow. And honestly, if you can click a link, that's all you got to do. Just click the link. That's actually our advertising and marketing. The last thing I'll say about this was, one of the things we did was we built a video and we deployed that. We did a marketing campaign to our employees. It surprises me, it shocks me that people are willing to spend $1 million on a UC client, right? They're willing to invest that money to do the infrastructure, which is a reasonable amount of money, especially if you're doing it at an enterprise level. It's actually kind of affordable. They're willing to do that, but they're not willing to spend $5,000 or $4,000 in making a training video or making marketing material. You're willing to spend $5.6 million over 2 years on an enterprise-wide telepresence environment, but you're not willing to make a $500 video? Honestly, really, you're not? That's crazy, right? But they won't do it. You have to be the navigator. You have to define that user experience. You have to bring people, navigate them through that user experience. And so this is what we did. We took our environment for our peripherals, we standardized them across our environment. So Plantronics didn't have a single management interface that you could do look at all of their devices in an enterprise environment and manage them. They do now. They do now because Bloomberg worked with them to help them develop it. The one that they developed wasn't as secure as it needed to be, and not knocking Plantronics. They just didn't think about the enterprise side. And now it is, with the help of Bloomberg. Right? The Logitech C930E enterprise. We worked with Logitech to help them do this. This is the C3000 camera that was part of the Colossal system. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but that wasn't a standalone camera. It wasn't a standalone camera until Bloomberg said it needs to be a standalone camera. All right? But these are the conversations that we have, and I recognize we come from a position of privilege, being Bloomberg and having a little more influence than some other firms. But the point is, you don't know unless you have the conversation. You don't know unless you come with the plan and define and articulate your user experience. And once they get it, they want to make money. They want to sell product. And your user experience could be somebody else's user experience, and so they will actually adopt that technology if you argue passionately about what it is that you want to do. So we changed all of our peripherals. And so over a 72-hour period of time, Friday 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friday 3 p.m. local time for all the regions. We went in and we ripped out all of the chat 100s and the Polycom speakerphones. We put in the UC 1000s from Revo Labs. We worked with Revo Labs to help develop what we wanted in our specific case. We have a special digital signal processor and things that we developed with Revo for our spaces. But nonetheless, we ripped them all out. We put in the new boxes. We took the cameras. We changed the cameras where we needed to. We changed the headsets where we needed to. We changed the pan-tilt zoom cameras where we needed to. We deployed the software around our 28,000 desks. We then tested and retested, and we did this not once, but we did this twice. Right? We did this in our first version, Nexi 1.0, and we did this in our second version only 2 months ago, December, for Nexi 2.0. Right? But because it's software-based, because it's operating system agnostic, right? Because it's the same interface across the world, we can lift and shift very easily. There's a military term that we use where if you've got an enemy, an objective in front of you, and that objective moves, what you give is you give the order to lift, the lift fire, and just shift fire. And if you can't lift and shift, you're dead. Right? Because the enemy's not going to stay there and let you get shot at them. Right? And so same thing here. Right? The technology is only as good as the people operating it, and the technology is only good as agile as you can be. I'm saying AA, 2 A's. But you have to be agile, is the point I'm trying to make, okay? And so if you can't change your platform over a weekend, you're in a bad spot. If you're hardware dependent in all these offices, or you've got Polycom and Cisco and Pexip and all this stuff distributed across your environment, you cannot have synergy. It isn't possible. And all the links that they tell you that provide that synergy, we all know they've got their problems and challenges, okay? But if you can lift and shift and change, well, then it doesn't matter what provider you're using, what platform you're using. You can always shift to the next platform that's best for you. And if your manufacturer that you partnered with one day isn't the manufacturer that you want to partner with the next day, then you can lift and shift to a new manufacturer. The front end, this is our branding. It's our name. Nexi is our product. Our users know Nexi. So there is no predefined or preconceived notions about what the expectation should be. If I were to, for example, deploy Spark, there's a preconceived notion of what that is. There's expectations that are there for my end users. There's things I can't turn on or can turn on, and if I do turn them on or off, my users are going to know that, and they're going to challenge me on that. No, there is no expectation with Nexi. We define what the expectation is with Nexi. We provide the new platforms and new features with Nexi. And so we get to decide our destiny with that product, and our users enjoy and come along with that and inform that experience. So that's what we did. This is our utilization. We have 19,000 employees, like I said, and we did basically 500 million minutes. And we're on track. If you add the 2 years cumulatively, then in April we will have 1 billion minutes on our platform. 1 billion minutes on our platform. So from 0 to 60 in 2 years. Not bad. Not bad. Deployed in 72 hours. And that is because a tremendous amount, 18 months of time was spent on understanding this cycle, being aware of the problem, not missing the moonwalking bear that was in front of us, right? Understanding that it wasn't a commodity that we're trying to buy, but rather experience, looking at the user experience life cycle and walking ourselves through each one of those iterations, collecting, understanding, synthesizing, analyzing, and then actioning on our data, not being married to a manufacturer's roadmap, but rather our own roadmap. And then because of that, we were able to deliver what I just showed you, which was Nexi, and we'll reach 1 billion minutes within a 2-year span of time with that product that we delivered. So that's it. Those are my words. Hopefully they've helped a little bit, and I am definitely happy to take any questions that you may have. Questions? I'm supposed to use this talk box. I think I'll get in trouble if I don't. There might be a sponsor. Anybody? I promise I won't bite. One time, I do that one time, and now everybody knows. Sure? Okay. All right, well, yes. There we go. He'll adjust. Go ahead. Just so they can capture it on tape. So what's your question?
So you deal with user interaction, you measure everything, you say data, data, data.
Mm-hmm.
But in my mind, there's more to data or more to user interaction than just data. There's the why. Why do people do certain things? How do you deal with that? How did you deal with that in your
Great question. So
development?
that's a great question. So the question, just so everyone can hear, is so there's data, and data informs us, what someone is doing, but it doesn't necessarily tell us why they're doing it. And that is where observation comes in, and that is where the I don't have it up, but the user stories and personas comes into play. So once you have the data and once you track what people are doing, then you have to go back and ask them. You actually have to ask them why. And oftentimes the data actually tells you why a person does something. There's a great graphic, and I wish I had it up, but basically imagine a walkway, and a walkway that goes up and then turns. Right? Goes up and turns. And there's a patch of grass right here. Okay? So there's a walkway, and it makes a 90-degree turn, and there's a patch of grass right here. And on that patch of grass, there's this beaten down path. Right? Because nobody makes the 90-degree turn, everybody cuts across the grass. Right? And there's this picture of this angry landscaper that's mad that people are walking through the grass. And what I would argue is that is not, because the groundskeeper is like, the design was to walk on the path, and you're not following the user design. And I would argue, no, the user design is wrong, and we should cut the angle in the path, right? And so oftentimes the data of people cutting across or doing something, that actually tells us why they're doing it. It tells us that they're doing it because they don't want to walk that far, right? And if you stop and if you get a statistical measurable amount of people cutting across, or you see that path being beaten, then you can stop and ask a significant sampling sizing of the people as to why they're doing that. If they all come back with the same answer, dude, I didn't want to walk the 90-degree angle, then you know why they're doing that. But the important thing is to be able to zoom out and say, here's my 90-degree angle, here's my cut through the grass. I need to know that information first. Otherwise, I can just ask why all day long, but if it's not informed by some sort of data, some sort of reasoning behind why I'm asking the why, it's just whys for the sake of whys. So if you understand, like, I need to know when to ask why, right? And the data kind of helps me inform when to ask why. Listen, any other questions? Did that answer your question? Okay. Any other questions? All right. I really appreciate, I was a little bummed at first, but you guys, your energy, your smiles, your wonderfulness, it helped me through it. So I really appreciate your attention. If there's anything I can do for you in the future individually, please reach out, give me your card, whatever. I love talking about this stuff. I love doing this stuff. And please use me as a resource through the course of your professional careers. Okay, have a wonderful rest of the day. All right.